Hey, it's Matthew Giorgio. When you're inventing something, creating something that didn't exist before, how do you know what customers really want? That's the question I want to think about and talk about in this video. So how do you know when you're inventing, creating, what customers really want? And you hear a lot about market research and focus groups and so on, but I'm not a big believer in the accuracy of those initiatives. Now they can work in certain circumstances, but when you're inventing and creating something that didn't exist before, that customers have never seen before, that you can't kind of say it's like this, but this, it's hard for people to give you real authentic feedback. And ultimately, the best and only feedback that really is authentic is when you ask somebody for their money and they give it to you, right? That's really the holy grail of knowing if something is going to work or not. So as an inventor and creator, how do we figure this out? And there's a saying, if Henry Ford asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, right? Although Henry Ford didn't actually invent the automobile, so but the analogy still works. So here's what I do. I don't know what other people do. Here's what I do. What I do is I use my own personal experience to try to empathize and put myself in the shoes of the user, the customer, why they'd want to buy something, what features they'd want. And then I have to balance that with the resources that I have to create whatever it is I'm going to create, right? So if it's a piece of software, it's how many programmers and graphic design resources do I have? How much funding? How much time do I have to develop something? So you have to kind of consider all those things to identify the most important features and elements of whatever it is that you want to create. And then what I do is I work with my team to actually create this thing and build it. And of course, while we're doing it, particularly if it's complex software, you're always going to be adjusting as you go and make compromises here and there. And but ultimately, you'll have a prototype, at least at minimum, or maybe an alpha or beta version that you can start asking people to use. But I like to get to commercialization as quickly as possible. In other words, make something that people will pay for and then start selling it. And then here's what I do. Here's the part two. So the part one is I just described. Part two is once the product is out there and people are buying it and using it and so on, I monitor every single customer help request that comes into our company. Every single one of them. I've monitored literally thousands and thousands of help requests over the last 25 years that have come in to our company. And I monitor them to try to carefully read and interpret what the issue may be. So, the thing you have to be careful of when customers are asking for help, they often don't articulate what the problem is. They might say, well, this doesn't work or this or that. And what you have to do as a designer, a product manager, whatever your role may be, to really understand, why is the customer sending me this help request? What triggered this to happen? Did they misunderstand something? Did they confuse something? Did the interface cause confusion? Did a feature actually not work? A lot of times we find, because we develop a lot of what I've created, I create simple things like plastic toys, but very complex software. A lot of times it's not the software, it's so complex that the user interpreted something differently than we would have hoped. And even though we may have instructor guides and user guides, a lot of times nowadays people don't read any of these things, so you have to kind of consider that as well. And so I look at every single help request that comes in, not just to answer the help request and help it or to help my team do that. It's to actually understand, why did this even happen? Why did this issue even happen to the point where somebody had to contact us to ask for help? And through that, not only do we discover how we can improve things, whether it's in our onboarding process, whether it's in the interface of the software, whether it could be an actual bug as well that has to be fixed, but also gives us insight into what the next feature should be that we need to work on. So if we're getting a lot of help requests for a particular issue, whether or not it's a problem with the software, it might identify for us that, hey, this is a tweak, an adjustment, or a new feature we need to add to eliminate this problem. So that's the approach that I take. Is I can't really ask initially when you're creating something brand new. You can't really ask customers what they want because they don't know what they want until you show it to them. And then once you show it to them, that's when you got to really dive deep and review every little piece of detail and really understand the root of the issue to help you improve your product and bring them to the next level. I hope you find this helpful. I'm Matthew Giorgio.